Welcome to today's deep dive. If you're joining us, you know exactly what our mission is here. We take a stack of, fascinating source material, we strip away all the noise, and we extract the absolute most important insights to give you a shortcut to being deeply well informed.
Absolutely. And today's material is really something else.
Yeah, it really is. Today we're unpacking a truly remarkable piece of journalism from Nug Notes. It's titled Red Roots Rolling Co. From Tobacco Fields to Cannabis Craft.
Right.
And we are looking at a masterclass and how mastering the micro details of one discipline can give you the exact blueprint to completely disrupt another.
It's just an incredible look at the convergence of tradition and innovation. You really don't often see a direct, unbroken line drawn between multi-generational old world agriculture and the, hyper-modern, highly regulated craft cannabis market.
No, you don't.
But that's exactly the bridge we're walking across today.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to set up the core contrast for you right away. How does a kid raised by his grandparents on a multi-generational tobacco farm in the Appalachian foothills of Kentucky end up entirely redefining the legal cannabis market in Colorado?
It sounds made up.
It genuinely sounds like the inciting incident of a movie, but the journey of Kayne Perry is entirely real. And it's completely driven by an absolute obsession with tactile details.
Yeah, and to understand the destination, you have to really dig into the soil of where he started. His bloodline had worked that specific Kentucky land long before he was even a thought.
Right.
We're talking about a level of plant judgment that wasn't acquired in a university agricultural science class or pulls from some textbook.
Yeah.
It's literally inherited in the fields. You learn the rhythm of the soil before you even learn how to drive.
I'm just trying to picture the sheer scale of the public wholesale tobacco markets he grew up around. The imagery in the article is wild.
Oh, it's intense.
Imagine these massive, sprawling harvests being brought into these open-air warehouses, right? And they're graded under the most intense, unforgiving scrutiny by buyers who have literally been doing this for 50 years.
And the thing is, those buyers weren't looking at spreadsheets.
Right.
They weren't checking moisture readouts on a tablet. They were making massive financial bids based purely on tactile feedback.
Just by touch.
Touch and smell.
Yeah.
They'd bury their hands in a massive pile of leaves, feel the texture, and smell the quality of the crop before they even fully examined the visual structure. There's this brilliant quote in the source material that sums this up perfectly.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah, it says, "Connoisseurship wasn't a story, it was the standard."
Connoisseurship wasn't a story, it was the standard. That is a really heavy standard for a kid to grow up under. I'd imagine that permanently changes the way your brain processes information.
What's fascinating here is how an environment like that permanently wires a young mind. When connoisseurship is the absolute baseline expectation just to get a seat at the table, you're trained to notice the microscopic variables.
You have to.
Exactly. You learn very quickly that survival in a legacy agricultural market depends on an intimate, almost subconscious understanding of the plant's biology.
He definitely took that understanding to a micro level. There's this whole section detailing how he used to just sit and watch his grandfather's workers roll cigars by hand.
Yeah, just studying them.
But he wasn't casually observing them out of boredom, right? What exactly was he looking for that gave him such a crazy edge later on?
He was studying the physics of the roll.
The physics.
Yes, he was watching the specific finger pressure required to guide the leaf without bruising it. He was tracking the exact tension of the wrapper as it was pulled and stretched over the filler material.
Wow.
He was literally training his nose to identify the perfect aroma and to feel the precise state of the cure.
The cure meaning the drying process.
Right, that incredibly delicate aging and drying process that locks in the chemical profile of the leaf without turning it into dust.
So he's absorbing the actual science of the smoke before he even knows he's a scientist, because the physical mechanics of a cigar are completely unforgiving. One tiny error seems like it just ruins the whole thing.
Completely unforgiving. He was learning how the time a plant spends curing post-harvest dictates the actual thermodynamics of how it burns months later.
That is wild.
He learned how the density of the packed material inside the wrapper acts as a valve, literally controlling the airflow.
The detail about the twist really got me. The article mentions that learning a final twist that is just a fraction of a millimeter too tight completely chokes out the draw.
Exactly.
You could have a perfect harvest, perfect curing, perfect wrapping, and then ruin months of agricultural work with one clumsy finger movement at the very end.
And that's exactly why those highly tactile, old-world skills were such a profound advantage for him later. He understood, on a deeply intuitive level, how every subtle, invisible nuance in the process compounds.
Right, it's not just an assembly line.
No, he wasn't just learning a manufacturing step. He was learning how a living, breathing plant behaves under human manipulation. That's a localized, hard-earned skill you simply cannot fake.
Which brings us to a massive turning point during his high school years. He discovers cannabis, he completely falls in love with the plant, and he immediately sees the parallel.
The light bulb goes on.
Exactly. He realizes this massive foundational database of tobacco knowledge sitting in his head could translate perfectly to this entirely different industry. But he's standing at a pretty serious crossroads in Kentucky at this point in his life.
There's a really heavy tension there because he was operating the legacy market, making what the source calls quick money.
Right.
And when you're young, fast money feels like success. But it's an ecosystem built on speed, shadows, and very real consequences. It's a road that lacks any sort of structural longevity.
He recognized that trap. He wanted legitimacy. He wanted licensing, structure, and most importantly, he wanted actual ownership of a brand. He wanted to build something the right way, out in the open.
A real legacy.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the leap of faith he takes next requires an almost terrifying amount of personal discipline.
Well, making the transition from an illicit, unregulated market to a highly scrutinized legal framework is notoriously difficult. But Kayne decided to completely reset his life. He packed up and left Kentucky behind before he even knew exactly what his final product or format was going to be.
Right. So in 2017, just after turning 18, he moves across the country to Gunnison, Colorado.
A small, freezing mountain town.
Yeah, freezing. But there is a massive, seemingly insurmountable regulatory obstacle waiting for him there. To participate professionally in Colorado's legal cannabis industry, the state law strictly requires you to be 21 years old and have 3 consecutive years of residency.
Yeah.
And he's 18. He literally has 1,095 days to kill before he can even legally step foot inside a cultivation facility. So what does this ambitious, driven kid do? He takes a job at Walmart.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this might be the most defining psychological moment of his entire entrepreneurial journey.
Why do you say that?
Well, we live in an incredibly impatient era. Everyone is constantly chasing a shortcut, a growth hack, or some rapid path to scale.
Totally.
But Kayne spent 3 years working a completely mundane, non-glamorous retail job at Walmart simply to establish his residency roots and satisfy a bureaucratic requirement.
Think about the psychological toll of that. You moved across the country to pioneer a new industry, and instead you're just stocking shelves for 3 years watching the calendar.
It takes serious grit.
But he wasn't just sitting idle during that time, was he?
Not at all. That kind of forced patience is an incredible asset if you use it correctly. When you are legally locked out of participating, you have this rare opportunity to observe the market from a bird's eye view without the daily pressure of producing overhead.
He could just study.
Exactly. He used those Walmart years to relentlessly study the Colorado market, tracking trends and reinforcing the discipline he brought with him from the Kentucky fields.
So by the time he finally hit 21 and crossed that regulatory threshold, he wasn't some wide-eyed novice trying to figure out how a dispensary works. He had a meticulously formulated plan.
A total game plan.
And he didn't just silo himself in one department. The source notes he jumped into the industry, working across cultivation, then manufacturing, then retail. Why was it so important for him to bounce around like that?
Because you can't disrupt a supply chain if you don't understand every single link in it. Working cultivation taught him the raw material. Manufacturing showed him the processing bottlenecks.
And retail.
Retail is where you learn the psychology of the consumer. He needed to be on the floor to see what actually moved off the shelves and to understand what the word quality truly meant to a returning customer who was paying premium retail prices.
He was actively hunting for a gap in the market, and he found it through a completely organic, almost accidental catalyst.
The joint?
Yes. One day, a coworker happens to spot one of Kayne's personal hand-rolled joints that he brought just for himself. They try it, and they are absolutely blown away.
It completely stood out.
Right. The evenness of the burn, the structural integrity, the clean finish. It immediately stood out as something light years ahead of what was commercially available in their own store.
That is the exact moment of synthesis. Kayne looks at the sales data and sees the massive market share that pre-rolled joints command.
They sell a ton of them.
They are huge revenue drivers. But then he looks at the quality deficit. Historically, in the early legal markets, pre-rolls were treated as the hot dogs of the dispensary.
The hot dogs of the dispensary. I love that phrasing.
It's true, though. They were an afterthought, a convenient way for companies to grind up and use lesser quality trim and bottom-of-the-barrel material just to get rid of it.
And he realized that if he applied his grandfather's uncompromising cigar rolling standards to this specific category, he wouldn't just be introducing a new product, he could single-handedly force the entire industry standard to level up.
Exactly. He saw that consumers were settling for mediocrity simply because true, artisanal craftsmanship hadn't been introduced to that specific product category at scale yet.
That realization births the brand. In 2022, he officially launches Red Roots Rolling Co. in the Colorado legal market. And I really love the intention behind the name.
It's very purposeful.
It honors the literal red dirt of Kentucky, and it carries the heavy weight of his grandparents' family legacy. Craft is in the details, and patience shapes what lasts.
By invoking that family legacy, he was making a very public commitment to an old world standard of quality in a notoriously volatile new world industry.
Right.
It's a promise to the consumer that this isn't a flash-in-the-pan cash grab.
The daily hustle to build this initial footprint is staggering to me. He secures a small workspace in Northwest Denver, and he's in there hand-rolling up to 100 joints a single day.
By himself.
Yeah. And we aren't talking about twisting up standard run-of-the-mill joints. He partners with some of the most elite growers and extractors in the state to specialize in hash holes.
Which is a whole different ballgame.
Right. For you listening, think of a hash hole as a feat of engineering. It involves perfectly suspending an inner core of concentrated extract directly in the center of the flower. When it burns, the extract melts and the flower combusts simultaneously, creating a perfectly hollow, glowing hole in the center like a donut.
It requires intense precision.
Intense precision to pull off without it burning unevenly.
It's an absolute nightmare to get right. Extract melts at a completely different temperature than flower burns.
Thermodynamics again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that core isn't perfectly centered, or if the tension of the roll is off by even a fraction of a millimeter, the extract runs down the side, ruins the airflow, and destroys the entire experience. Doing that by hand, 100 times a day, is an exercise in extreme, punishing repetition.
He was proving, joint by joint, that a pre-roll could demand the exact same respect, structural integrity, and ritualistic discipline as a $200 premium cigar. So what does this all mean? Because rolling 100 perfect joints a day is an amazing artisan achievement, but it doesn't necessarily change an entire global industry. To do that, you have to look beyond the product itself, right? Yeah. You have to look at the actual tools of the trade.
This is the critical pivot from artisan to engineer. When you are operating at that high level of tactile precision, day in and day out, you very quickly discover the catastrophic limitations of your equipment.
Right. I was looking at this transition from 3D printed tools to metal ones in the source material. Why couldn't he just stick with the 3D printed templates that everyone else in the underground scene was using to make these hash holes?
It comes right back to material science. 3D printed plastics warp under the subtle pressures of constant rolling.
They just don't hold up.
They don't. And worse, the micro ridges left behind by the printing process act like sandpaper. They catch the sticky resin, causing buildup and creating microabrasions that ruin the structural integrity of the roll. They simply lack the durability and the flawless, smooth surface required for true repeatability at commercial scale without degrading the quality.
So he takes matters into his own hands and literally re-engineers the entire concept. He designs a production-ready metal system machined for absolute concentricity, built specifically to withstand commercial wear and tear, and designed to deliver microscopic precision time after time.
This raises an important question. How often do you see a master artisan successfully scale their craft without compromising their foundational standard?
Almost never.
It's incredibly rare. Usually the moment a handmade process enters mass production, the soul of the product just evaporates.
But by innovating the tooling behind the technique, rather than just outsourcing the labor, he didn't just refine his own Denver operation. He created a way for other serious craftsmen to replicate his standard.
He elevated the entire global ecosystem. By engineering and providing superior tools, he essentially removed the excuse for poor quality.
He raised the floor.
Yes. He forced the global standard of the final product to rise. It's a brilliant lesson. Creating the infrastructure for quality is just as vital as creating the quality product itself.
And the global impact is totally undeniable. These Red Roots rolling kits are now sold worldwide. He took a localized, internal frustration from his Denver workspace and turned it into an industry-wide solution. He literally professionalized the hash hole rolling process for global markets.
And the market absolutely responded to that level of uncompromising infrastructure.
The trophies back it up emphatically. Red Roots won Best Pre-Roll in the Westward Best of Denver in 2023. Then they won Best Way to Celebrate at a Dispensary in 2024.
Incredible run.
And they've already locked in Best Collaboration for 2025 with the legendary Green Dot Labs. Kayne is out there hosting and judging international rolling competitions. His products are sitting on the shelves of over 200 dispensaries across Colorado, and the brand consistently ranks in the top 10 of the Proper Smoke League.
Which is massive.
Yeah, the Proper Smoke League is essentially the ultimate cutthroat competitive proving ground for boutique cannabis quality.
And those aren't just vanity metrics or popularity contests. Winning consecutive years across completely different categories proves operational consistency.
Right, it's not a fluke.
Anyone can get lucky and win once. But dominating for 3 years straight shows a foundational, almost obsessive commitment to excellence that the market simply can't help but reward.
Which brings us to the overarching ethos of Red Roots Rolling Co-Pit, perfectly encapsulated in their motto, "Smoking on culture."
Smoking on culture.
It means that from the grueling agricultural fields to the sleek dispensary shelves, the brand represents an uncompromising standard of flavor, form, and discipline. When you spark one of their products, you aren't just consuming a plant. You're experiencing the culmination of generations of hard-won agricultural knowledge.
It's a powerful reminder that true culture isn't just a marketing buzzword slapped on a sleek packaging label. In this context, culture is the inherited knowledge, the brutal delayed gratification of those Walmart years, and the obsessive daily refinement of a physical craft.
And that's exactly why this narrative matters so much to you listening right now. Whether you're prepping for a massive corporate merger, trying to learn a completely new technical field, or just trying to navigate the messy middle of your own career pivot, Kayne's story is the ultimate proof of concept.
It applies everywhere.
It really does. Extreme patience, mastering the mundane, and maintaining an obsessive focus on the tactile micro details can allow you to become a massive disruptor in literally any space you choose to enter.
The principles of excellence are completely agnostic. They are universally transferable. The medium might change from curing tobacco to cultivating cannabis, or from legacy agriculture to high-tech software development. But the sheer discipline required to master the microdetails remains exactly the same.
We've just spent this time exploring how centuries-old tactile tobacco farming techniques completely elevated the hyper-modern cannabis pre-roll, which leaves us with a fascinating final thought for you to explore on your own today.
Let's hear it.
What other overlooked legacy traditions, whether in agriculture, textiles, or mechanics, are out there right now, just waiting to be adapted by someone with enough patience to completely disrupt and elevate the high-tech modern industries of today? Think about it. Until next time, keep diving deep.